Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hey, boss. Commissioner Slater Harrington.
I was like, it's talking to me.
Yeah.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Good. Well, I'm here. I'm going to be on the phone.
Okay.
I'm still at school. I'm doing stuff here as I'm participating with this. And I'm doing stuff in preparation for flying out tomorrow.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So I'm here.
All righty. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, well, I can't talk now. We'll talk later about our interviews, how they went for you.
Okay.
Okay? All right,
All
peace.
righty. All righty. I'll give it 30 more seconds and then we'll go ahead and open up the meeting. All righty, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is Committee Chair Kalila Slater Harrington. I'd like to welcome you all to the September 9th meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee. If you have not yet done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, please turn your camera off if you are not a board member or the CEO and her staff. I will now read a roll call of the board to identify who is present. Please identify yourself first before speaking for the record. Commissioner Chicas Guzman. Commissioner Kenyatta Bay.
Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, present.
Commissioner Woodruff. Okay. And do we have staff? Are there any other commissioners here?
Hi, Commissioner Slater Harrington. This is Tanisha. Commissioner Scott Woodruff is here. I am moving her up so that way she can have access to her mic.
Awesome. So I'll mark her as present.
Commissioner Scott Woodruff, present. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. So glad to have you. All righty. So let's get started. Today marks the beginning of a new school year and a new cycle of our work as a committee. The goals at the top of our agenda are not just numbers. They represent our commitment to every student in Baltimore City schools. Increasing student wholeness, improving literacy and math proficiency, and ensuring more of our students graduate ready for their next step. These are not small tasks, and we've been making incremental progress. But the task is urgent and it's essential. And so as we begin this year's work, let's anchor ourselves in both the progress we've made and the responsibility we carry to move with urgency. Our job as Teaching and Learning Committee is to ask the right questions, challenge assumptions, and ensure that every strategy leads us closer to equity and excellence for our students. With that being said, I'm happy to open it up for our first presentation. And I think that I am turning it over to, let's see, Miss Wu. Jenny Wu, are you here? Okay, I'll pause.
Commissioner Slater Harrington, me again.
Oh, wait. So wait,
Dr.
I
Wu
saw
is here,
Amy's here.
and she
Oh,
now
I'm
has
hearing from my
access.
team. Yeah, the Amy's not on as a presenter. That's the challenge.
Okay.
What's
Okay,
Amy's
well,
last
neither's
name?
Jenny Wu. So we need Jenny Wu, Amy Winchester, and Zach Jaffe. We need all of them.
Jenny should now have access.
Okay,
And Dr. Swinbuck, Chief
Yeah,
Person.
she's, Dr. Swinbuck was already here. Yes.
Perfect.
okay, great. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Welcome, everyone. So while we're waiting for everyone to get queued up, I will say that this is one of the presentations that I most enjoy, the body of work that I really enjoy, as it really is an indication of the district of being a learning organization. Realizing that, yes, we are making progress, but how can we scale and advance that progress? So I always enjoy this and how we continuously improve.
Good afternoon.
Hey there. Hi, friend.
Sorry for the delay. We're trying to figure out, I see Zach Jaffe here, but he, I think, can't present for some reason, and he's going to be sharing.
I'm a presenter now. I'm
Okay,
in.
perfect. Great. Thank
We're
you.
continuously improving by the
Yes,
moment.
we are.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater Harrington. While Zach is pulling up the presentation, I will just say good afternoon and thank you for having us. This is kind of our annual, as Commissioner Slater Harrington mentioned, presentation on our continuous improvement efforts here in city schools. So we will go ahead and get started, I think. I think the first slide is going to show the continuous improvement team. Yeah, here we are. We do a lot of work, not only in schools, but also in central office, working with teams on, thinking about how they can continue to improve the work that they do and how they approach the work. And so if we go to the next slide, is just a reminder of kind of our way that we think about continuous improvement here at City Schools. It's really a systematic and structured way in which we think about challenges that we have and then work through how we address those challenges. And so as a reminder, because I think this graphic we have shown before, when we think about continuous improvement here at City Schools, we first start with the left-hand side, which is the strategy component, where we really think about what the root causes are for a particular problem we're trying to solve and what is the goal for how we want to improve it. And then we really focus on thinking about, so how do we measure then what we are trying to improve, and then determining what strategies we can use to bring about that improvement. So that's all the strategy kind of work that we do to think through a particular challenge. And then that leads us into the doing component, which is on the right-hand side of the slide, which is, as we say here, the engine for learning, right? Which is, I think most folks know this as the PDSA cycle. So Plan, Do, Study, Act. And that's really the foundation on which we build kind of the actual work of continuous improvement, having folks plan something, a strategy, implement it, and then really look at that data and determine and study it to determine if something worked or not to bring about a change. And then based on what you learn, to act on it, to make the change, to continue to improve, right? And so you kind of continue through that cycle. And as you do that, you will continue to improve the thing that you're working on. That is, again, just a reminder of how we think about continuous improvement here at City Schools. And with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to other members of the team here. We're really going to focus, because this is teaching and learning, on the continuous improvement work that we're really doing in schools. And so you will see some updates on writing, on math, on 9th grade On Track to Graduate, as well as the Focus Forward Improvement Community of Schools that we're really focusing in on this year for improvement. And so with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Zach to kick us off with talking about writing.
All right, thank you. So the Writing Revolution Improvement Community is one of those projects that started off very small and is now getting very big and scaling across the whole district. As a reminder of the continuous improvement portion that we did last school year, we worked with 21 high schools across grade 3 through 8. A couple high schools were included within that too, and really trying to work with a group of teachers at each school who are implementing the Writing Revolution strategies within their classroom. As a reminder, these are teachers across all different content areas, not just English. And they were working on sentence level strategies, but also pre-writing or paragraph planning strategies. As a CI team, we were able to meet with them every month across the school year. We also separately worked with all of the literacy coaches to give them some initial PD, some initial training in all of these Writing Revolution strategies so that they would be ready for it, even if this particular group wasn't at their school yet. Some of the key strategies for implementation that we discovered, the ongoing PD provided by this district team was very important in answering a lot of people's questions and getting them used to what it could look like in the classroom. The coaches told us that when they were able to implement it well in their schools is because they made effective use of collaborative planning time. They were given the space to use that time to really work with their teachers on these writing strategies, as well as support them with the look-fors in the classroom as well. And they really appreciated the data analysis support provided by the district team. You may or may not be familiar with some of these sentence level strategies listed on the right-hand side, but this is a list of a few of them. You can also see at the bottom working on that single paragraph outline. And one thing teachers told us was very important is working on revision strategies with their students as well. So collecting data for the second year in a row, we've been wondering, is this making a difference with our students in terms of ELA MCAP scores? And this is what we found. A couple things to notice right here. There's a vertical bar, that dashed line, and anything to the right of that is a statistically significant difference between the students who are working with us in the Writing Revolution group and the other students across the district who are taking the MCAP test at the same time. A couple things to note about the data as well. We were focusing on students who took the test 2 years in a row, so had an MCAP score for 23-24 and for 24-25. And we wanted to look at our particular group of students, but then also kind of match them up with similar students across the district so that we could get a really accurate comparison of how the TWR instruction might have been making a difference. And so our students, a group of 728 of them that we were looking at that were verified by the teachers that they did do the work in the instruction at these schools and in these particular grades, they were matched up with some other students who had the same grade level, same gender, same race, special ed status, multilingual learner status. And with that, we could say, what would happen if you were that type of student in a TWR classroom versus the same type of student in a non-TWR classroom? And so if you look at the top, which is across all the grades that we were working with, you can see that everything is to the right-hand side of that vertical line, which means there's a statistically significant difference. And what this is showing is kind of the odds that you would be proficient on the writing portion of the MCAP test, whether you were in the TWR group or not. And for all grades, you can see that you had about a 1.4 times the odds of being proficient on the writing portion of the test compared to your peer group students who are not getting that similar instruction. And we know that it's statistically significant because the whole bar, the whole horizontal bar is to the right of that vertical line there. Something similar for grade 4, there's an even greater improvement in your odds. And also for grade 8, those are other statistically significant differences. Not so much when you look at grade 5, 6, and 7. Of course, these are small numbers, so we can't say anything definitive. Grade 6, you even see a little bit lower chance of passing the or being proficient on the writing portion of the exam than those who are not in the TWR group. But overall, we can see that at least with the group of students we were working with, it did seem to make a difference in their MCAP scores. Not saying that there's any causality there, but it is a pretty strong correlation. Another way of looking at it with this particular group of students who had test scores both in spring of 24 and spring of 25 is how much did they increase in their writing scores compared to the district? And if you look on the left, the district as a whole, that particular group of students who had scores 2 years in a row increased by about 2.1% on the writing portion of the exam. But with our group of students who got the Writing Revolution instruction, they increased by 4.7% from their previous year's score. So that's another good indication that it was making a difference for students. So what's happening this year as we move forward? As I said, it's scaling even further upward. One part of that is the comprehensive instructional materials that are even now being created and were worked on a lot over the spring and the summer. One of the things the teachers and literacy coaches told us is that we really need the materials created to integrate into our existing high quality instructional materials so that the teachers aren't doing all the work of creating these activities. And so we got a group of coaches, a group of teachers who are all working to create those materials for ELA in grades K, 3, 6, and 9, and for science in the same grades, plus also grades 5 and 8, to just see what it looks like when these materials are created and can be integrated into the classroom, with the thought that if it's going well, we can expand further into other grades in further years. Further capacity building for coaches and teachers as well. Lots of training around the Writing Revolution, access to literacy coaches for the Writing Revolution platform, and we're going to be working on some professional learning arcs for teachers as well to keep them up to speed. We have a group of schools that are going to be problem of practice sites as innovation hubs. So getting together and meeting with them monthly, just as we did last year with a smaller group of schools, so that we can really learn about implementation, what's working and needs to be adjusted. And then really thinking about how do we sustain this for the long-term impact, like kind of brainstorming, where does it go in future years so that it really integrates into district-wide structures. The next thing we wanted to talk about was our math improvement network for teachers, which is one of the things that's still kind of at a small scale, and I'll turn it over to Amy to talk about that.
Thanks, Zach. So over this past school year, we worked predominantly in CLN3 in partnership with ILED Voluntein to work with teachers focused on improving math fluency and automaticity of multiplication facts for students in grades 3 through 5. So we were able to work with 26 teachers over about 11 schools within CLN3. And then the teachers were able to engage in about 9 PDSA cycles, which were really focused on their implementation of some of these math strategies that we had identified are critical for students building both their automaticity of math facts, which is their ability to recall math facts in a short period of time, as well as fluency with key strategies, things like skip counting, repeated addition, break apart to multiply. And in addition to that, as a way to look at the signals of improvement and growth among students, we use an assessment that we created specifically for this work because we didn't find anything nationally that was really going to work for what we were doing within this network. And that is our multiplication division fluency assessment, or the MDF, which is that acronym that you see. And so our teachers were able to implement 6 administrations of the MDF throughout the year so that we would get about monthly some insights about how students were growing in their multiplication fluency. And so one of the things that we, this is universal across all of our improvement projects, but that has been highlighted here with math especially, is that in order for us to do improvement work, especially with teachers on the ground, we have to have good data and it has to be timely. And so like I mentioned, when we first started the Mint Fellowship a few years ago, we realized that we needed an assessment, almost like an oral reading fluency assessment in literacy, but we needed that for math. And so that's where this MDF, or the multiplication division fluency assessment, came. And you can see an example of what that looks like for students on the right-hand side. And so with this, we're able to measure progress because we're able to see where students are growing in their fluency and also where they're getting stuck, so that we can really refine practice to address the where students are kind of in this growth continuum. And so when we look at our data from last year over those 6 administrations of MDF, we do see signals of growth and improvement among the students that we worked with. And so when we talk about this idea of progression of multiplication fluency, we start at this stage 1, which is really students starting to develop their conceptual understanding of multiplication and how it kind of fits within this broader system of math. And so over the course of time, we want them to end up in this kind of green and gold area where we're starting to see that they have that automaticity, they have fluency, they're able to use strategies to solve problems. And so what we're seeing here is really really, for us, a positive signal that what we're doing with students is helping them to build those skills. Because we went from all of our students starting at stage 1 at the beginning of the year to about 18% of our students at stage 3, which means they have full automaticity. They can recall all of their math facts up to 10, which is the standard that we have in grade 3. And then a lot more students in that green bar that are really on the verge of doing that and really just need more time to practice and become more efficient. And so through this data, we are seeing that there is impact for our students as they're engaging in the math practices as part of this network. Similar to writing, we wanted to also look at, is there any signal that there's impact on MCAP based off what we're doing with our students in our math improvement community? And so similar to the analysis that we did in writing, we wanted to look at how does the math scale score on MCAP in school year 24-25, how is it impacted by what our students are engaging with in MINT? And so what we're noticing here is that in all grades, we see almost a statistically significant impact, but it's not quite. But we actually see a lot of impact in grade 3. And we see that on average, our third graders in MINT scored 3 points higher on MCAP than their matched peers who were not engaging in MINT practices with their teachers. And for us, this is kind of a validation of a hypothesis that we started with, which is that we would expect to see impact for third grade students because it is a direct standard that they will be tested on at the end of the year in MCAP. We also wanted to look at, though, what the probability was of students across these different grade levels of scoring higher on MCAP. And so when we look here, we see that there is a statistically significant impact on all grades. And we're seeing that our MINT students are about 1 times more likely to score a 2 or above on the MCAP compared to their matched peers who are not in MINT. Similarly, we see in 4th grade that there's also, that's actually higher. It's about a 2 times more likelihood that they're going to score at a higher level, a 2 or more on MCAP compared to their matched peers. And so again, this is validating for us a hypothesis that we have that if we're able to support 4th and 5th grade students with building these skills, that it'll help them to access the grade level content that they're experiencing in grades where multiplication might not be a direct standard. So again, like writing, we're seeing impact of what we're doing with our students. There's some signals. Again, it's not causality, but it's correlation that gives us insight into what we're doing is definitely having some sort of impact for our students. We also, though, wanted to look at the impact on our teachers, because our teachers aren't just necessarily coming to meet with us and then going back to their classroom. There's a lot of professional learning that's happening in the fellowships that we run with our schools. And in this case, our teachers meet with us biweekly. They're looking at data, they're making adjustments, and they're really utilizing that improvement process as they're thinking about this particular problem that we're trying to improve for our students. And I'm not going to read these quotes specifically, but I will just kind of name some of the things that are common across them. One being that teachers are really appreciative of being able to look at data in real time. So being able to see something quickly, be able to have a structure for how to digest that information, have a data visual that is easy to access and really reflect on as a way to make real-time pivots to what they're doing. So they really appreciate this PDSA cycle because it gives them the ability to dig deeply into a very specific problem of practice or into a specific area that they care about or that is persistent with their students. Teachers also explain that the fellowship gives them the opportunity to engage with other colleagues across the district because our fellowships are not just within a school, but across schools. And then they also talked about how the fellowship has been a really helpful opportunity for professional learning to go deeper into the content. So a lot of our teachers talk about how they have a deeper understanding of what fluency is now and what that looks like in the classroom for their students, because that is part of what we're doing through this improvement process. So based off everything that we've learned this year, last year, for this year, we're really going to double down kind of on 4 pivots. The first is that the MDF originally we were just kind of using as a benchmark over the course of the year, but we recognize that it has a lot of value in giving us some diagnostic understanding about students for the first time at BOY. And so we're really using that in the next couple of weeks to support our understanding of how we start to that acceleration from the beginning, especially for our 4th and 5th graders. We also recognize that because the MDF is limited in what it can tell us, we need something that gives us better understanding of where students are, like how their understanding is developing over the course of their work with MINT. And so the mastery assessment helps us to really understand why a student might be getting stuck and not necessarily progressing. And that then helps us to, in real time, figure out what adjustments we need to make in the work that we're doing in MINT. We're also updating our practices to reinforce conceptual understanding of math. That was a big learning for us this year as we talked to students especially, is understanding the connection between addition and multiplication and how that then plays out in their growth along this fluency journey that they're on. And finally, we recognize that oftentimes what we were doing was not fully accessible to multilingual learners and students with disabilities. So we're really focusing on how we create resources and practice that can really be accessible to all of our students, including our multilingual learners and our students with disabilities. And so for this year, we're really, our leadership team in the district is focused on digging into what does quality instruction of these practices look like. We spent a lot of time last year around implementation because we wanted to understand what was feasible. And now we want to shift to what does quality look like as a way to better understand what professional learning is critical to support teachers as they take this up in their classroom. The other is understanding kind of the dosage of the different types of practice. So how much time do students need to spend doing the conceptual thinking and how much time do they need to just practice it? And so we're really digging into this kind of dosage question to help us better understand how to prioritize, knowing that the time the teachers have in the classroom is limited. And finally, one of the things that, the math office has been amazing with is helping us think about how we can integrate what we're learning more into the system. And so last year we learned that implementing fluency practice regularly with our teachers happened often in small group time. And so with the support and the leadership of our math office, they have really incorporated that into the guidance of what teachers should be doing in small group for this year, which allows for our teachers to feel like there is space for this to happen within the instructional block. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Zach so he can give an update on 9th grade on track.
Thank you. Again, another project that started very small and is now working with all the high schools. Last year with the CI team, we engaged 19 schools in the CI process, and it was really focused on improving grading practices. How can we have the 9th grade on track to graduate coordinators working not just with students, with groups of teachers to maximize the chance that the students are passing all of their classes? One of the things that the coordinators did is to conduct empathy interviews with their students to really understand their experiences. They also mapped out the system of grading practices that was happening at their school, and then worked with teachers around 3 PDSA cycles to implement the grading practices reflection process to see if their teachers could become more reflective about their own grading and how they could help their students by shifting it. Leading to this larger body of can we get more students to be on track by the time that they leave 9th grade to go into 10th grade, which we've been collecting data on for a couple of years now. One standard that we've kind of set for ourselves as a group is that students shouldn't be failing any of their classes. And you can see from the purple line what this looks like quarter by quarter from progress report to marking period from the beginning of the year to the end of the year last year. And you can see from where we started around 40% in that first quarter progress report, were passing all of their classes, to 50% by the end of the year passed all of their classes in 9th grade is a nice little increase, especially when you compare it to the gray line below, which is those same figures from the year before. So our coordinators are making some progress, finding ways to get more and more students not to fail any of their classes in 9th grade. We also have data on this other standard of are the students actually progressing to 10th grade and meeting the Maryland standards for that. which is not quite as high a standard as not failing any of their classes. But that data is still preliminary. We still need to analyze the final data that's come in since summer school has ended and everything and see where we end up. Initial looks at the data show that it's positive as well, though. What's going to be happening next year or this year is that we're going to have a network of 10 high schools that are really going to dig deeper to identify the core tasks that an OTG coordinator should be doing at different points during the year. They're going to be having monthly learning huddles with us, collecting data from the field and having that time to reflect with their colleagues. And the goal is to really implement improvement cycles that are focused on implementation at scale. If these are the best practices that a coordinator should be engaging in at this certain time during the year, how's it going? What does it take to implement those? What support do you need in order to do it better? And then, of course, what difference is it making to keep all of our students on track? Last thing we want to talk about, turn it over to Dr. Swinton-Buck to talk about the Focus Forward Improvement Community.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to share about FFIC. You might hear FIC. It is Focus Forward Improvement Community. There are 25 schools that were selected based on persistent achievement challenges and several other data sources specific to their state designation as CSI or MRI. In addition, we looked at our 5 Essentials survey, which kind of evaluates the overall readiness for school improvement at our schools. And so there were several data sources that we looked at to identify these 25 schools. And it's really a result of cross-office data analysis that we've done that led us to this point where we're launching into this improvement community. We are excited about this improvement community because it really allows our academic partners to get really proximate to what is working in schools and what challenges schools are facing. And so what I'll talk through is kind of how we are building out the PDSA cycle for these schools connected to the academic achievement, but there are several other indicators in our process that we will be monitoring and tracking centrally to make sure that the conditions and structures are set so that these schools can really accelerate progress in ways that we haven't seen as of recently. So we are excited about that. School leaders will be working to build the capacity of their ILT members because we know those folks on the instructional leadership teams are the folks who are leading the improvement work, supporting as coaches and in collaborative planning and giving feedback to teachers and building teachers' capacity. And so that is a focal point of the FFIC work that we will be doing as well. Next slide. You'll see here, we've organized schools into affinity groups to really strengthen the collaboration. These groups are to provide a space where we share problems of practice, we test solutions, and ultimately we want to accelerate learning. And so these are spaces where we are going to learn at a faster rate, we make shifts, and then continue to iterate on the change ideas that we've identified in these affinity groups. Next slide. We had an awesome launch on August 5th. 90% of attendees reported that they found the session to be valuable and extremely valuable. And it was mainly because we created a highly engaging, resource-rich environment where cross-office folks were in there. We had our equity team, OAA, partners in academics, as well as human capital and several other offices who helped build out what we were doing and how we wanted to launch. And it was a space for principals to collaborate with each other on things that's working really well and things that they're struggling with. And it was really powerful in that space where principals were able to make connections with their colleagues and identify resources that can help them in their change idea. So I know I got a little excited about the affinity groups and the things in the official launch. We have more to come, but I think that we have a solid ground to stand on as we continue to support the school leaders in their ILTs and the work that they need to do. And so right now we are doing individual team support sessions with school leaders. We have also called in principal coaches as applicable, as well as SSLs, ILEDs into the space so we can clarify any questions or concerns or challenges that folks are facing as they are building out their PDSA cycle, and then just a space for principals to share where they feel there are competing priorities that don't always align to what we have identified as their change idea and their academic focus for overall student outcomes. And so that space has been powerful in that we're doing an assessment of where we are, where we're headed, and what support schools need from us so that they can do their best work and focus on what matters the most. We are in our cycle of OGAP training, and OGAP, if this is unfamiliar to you, it is the ongoing assessment project, and this is an intensive professional learning opportunity for schools that have selected math as a part of their focus area for their change idea, and it's really building content knowledge for those teachers and helping them identify where and when students need interventions based on the data. And so it really allows teachers to make those quick shifts much faster so that we can stamp the right thing and build a momentum, an instructional momentum in math. So we are excited about OGAP training. We also have identified the early literacy tutors and placed them in schools where they have a literacy focus. And we know that our early literacy tutors have been a strong strategy in other initiatives. And so we're excited about providing that resource to these selected schools. We are officially launching on September 22nd, and that is when the FFIC leads will be pushing into ILTs to officially launch their PDSA cycle. And then lastly, we are convening on November 7th, and this will be connected to our August launch where school leaders will begin to talk about the data that they've collected from the start of school to November and what shifts need to make and what resources they will need to make those shifts within their PDSA cycle. So all in all, FIC really aligns to city schools' strategic priorities and our focus on coherence and high quality instruction. And we're really excited about getting very proximate to what is working in schools and where we need to adjust and what resources schools need to accelerate learning and student outcomes.
Thanks, Taisha. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Zach. That's the presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to share about our continuous improvement efforts here. Happy to take any questions from any of the commissioners.
Amazing work, team. I'm so excited. I'll open it up to other commissioners for questions first. Anybody?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. Really helpful, just providing context. I have two questions. One, you talked about the timing, or you talked about some of the broad changes that you are making this year based off of the data. Can you talk about like some of the changes that you make like during the school year? I know you do various rounds of these cycles of learning. Can you just talk a little bit about like what that looks like during the school year and like how you're changing and iterating throughout? Just so I can have that context. And then my second question, during the presentation for the MINT program, one of the teacher quotes reference a revelation that they could use some of those frameworks for special education students or gifted and learning students. Can you speak a little more about, I guess, the mix of teachers that are involved in the various programs? So you have a mix of special educators and general educators, and maybe that is even like across programs.
Sure. So for the first question, around like an example, so one of the, I'll take MINT as the example here. So around December, we had run by that point like 3 or 4 cycles. And one of the things that we were noticing was that teachers were struggling to have the time to pull small groups for every single student so that the students could engage in each of those small groups. And because what we were doing at that moment was looking at feasibility, we just wanted to see if we could actually do a full round, a full implementation of the protocol. And so one of the changes that we made in the next cycle was we had teachers identify a focal group of students to work with for a month so that we could measure from the beginning to the end of that month how much impact it had on their fluency. And then what we realized was that there was a need for certain levels of dosage. So students really needed to 3 to 5 times a week, but it didn't all have to be in small groups. So for the next cycle after that, we started to introduce independent practice to see how independent practice could help bolster small group, but also help the teachers be able to feasibly do it in the classroom with the time that they had. So that's one example of like the progression of the PDSA cycles that support teachers' ability to bring feedback to our huddles, and then for us as a network team to make adjustments to what we're trying to push out across schools so that in real time we can make adjustments and see how that impacts the overall outcomes that we're looking to improve. And then for the second around who are the teachers, it really depends on the network that we're working with. So in Mint, we're looking for any teacher that is working with students in math. And so that does include special educators, but it also includes general educators. And we are looking, and so like the parameters for Mint is that they do have to be 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade teachers or working with 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade students. And so depending upon the network, there might be some of those parameters because we know that there's certain areas that we're trying to explore more deeply. And we want to make sure that while we do have a diversity, we also can learn deeply about that specific part of the system.
Awesome, thank you.
Commissioner
Hello.
Kenyatta Bay, there you go.
I'm sorry. Yes, I think some of the work that you're doing is absolutely astounding. It's some really good work, but the pressure that is being placed on the teachers in the implementation. Yes, PDs are great, but what happens is in the implementation, how much of the cross-curricular aspect of building that muscle for, especially when it comes to math, are we seeing implemented? Because what happens is all of a sudden you have a teacher there that's out on an island, basically. I mean, and it's coming. I mean, I know you're providing a whole array of support. Sometimes being able to have that cross curricular support helps them, because one of the problems that I find in mathematics is especially in math, is because not seeing a practical side, students kind of disassociate at times, and we need to make sure that association becomes strong and real for them. That's all. More of a comment than, I guess, a question. Okay, I'm going back into mute so I can hear you.
Okay, did anybody want to respond?
Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about the time that the Mint math teachers have to be able to collaborate and work together? And then I know Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, were mainly talking about math, but Zach might be able to share a little bit about some of the cross-curricular work and the writing work that I know is happening, because I think part of the strength of our continuous improvement work is that we do give teachers space and time to be able to collaborate and work together on things in a way that they might not normally. As you mentioned, Commissioner, around kind of teachers feeling like an island. I think part of our continuous improvement work is giving teachers the space and time for that, and trying to find and make space and time for them when they don't have it. So I'll let Amy and Zach talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so one of the things we learned early on when we started running these teacher improvement fellowships is that it has to be in close partnership with the content teams. So when we're thinking about what does this look like for a math teacher, we recognize that what we're doing in our improvement community is one small piece of a bigger system. And so really working closely with Carrie and also her team to think about what the whole system of math instruction should look like and where this piece fits has been really helpful for us to kind of think about some of those layers before it gets to the teacher. In addition to that, like Dr. Wu was mentioning, the ability for teachers to have a voice in the feasibility of doing something is also really important and critical in our improvement communities. So for them to be able to come and say, I wasn't able to do anything because of these reasons, and then for us to be able to then take that feedback and figure out how as a system we need to pivot has also been a really helpful thing too. And so I think over the course of the last 2 years, we've been able to arrive at like, wow, this really needs to live in small group. Now, how can that look? And that is truly because of our teachers and because of Carrie's leadership in the math office of being able to help us make those pivots as they kind of bubble up.
And I think in terms of the writing work, I appreciate that push, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, because that's been one of our focus areas for the whole year and even before, is that writing is not something that happens only in English class, but it's across all of the curricula. And the working group that we've had is composed of many different representatives from the Office of Teaching and Learning, so that we have the voice of science, social studies, math, everybody involved. And in working with our group of literacy coaches, they were only allowed to be in this fellowship that we had last year if they were bringing at least 4 teachers from their school, and they could not all be ELA teachers. They had to have a mix there. And it was really great to hear about how they were pushing in the professional learning to different content areas, because that only strengthens the understanding for the students. Quick little story from Reginald F. Lewis, which did a great job of doing it across all the content areas. We had one of the English teachers, her student came up to her and said, you know, they're after your job right now. And she said, what are you talking about? And the student said, hey, we've been learning about complete sentences in band class right now, so they got you, right? And so that just indicates what you were saying, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay, is like it's really important to reinforce the skills that they get it everywhere.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. So I'd
Thank
like
you very much.
You're welcome very much. Give me just a second. I had written down my question. Okay. I'd like to go back a little bit to talk about, it feels like we're all going to Mint first, not, but we'll come back out of that as well. But I'm always concerned with multilingual learners and for our students with disabilities. And as we talk about making gains with multiplication fluency, how are we extending that to make sure that these two groups are getting stronger supports? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. For math specifically and Mint specifically, one of the things that we are going to lean into more that we didn't last year and recognized is that we have quite a few special educators as part of our fellowship, and we really need to dig into what does it look like in a self-contained classroom or in a push in pull out experience, and how does what we're doing maybe not currently accessible. And so that's something that we're going to really focus on this year. In terms of the multilingual learners, and I think that this is something that Zach and I are often grappling with across all of our improvement communities, is first the accessibility. How do we make what we're doing accessible, especially for our multilingual learners who are still transitioning into English proficiency? That shouldn't be the metric for when they get to access what we're doing in a classroom. And so that is through, what we're currently thinking about, and also partnering with the Office of Multilingual Learners so that we can really understand what that needs to look like for different layers that we haven't currently really been digging into.
Excellent. All righty. I have a question around sustainability and scale. So these communities and fellowships seem to provide rich professional learning, which I love. Again, further amplifying our being a learning organization, that we're not just teaching children, we're a learning organization through and through. And so I'm really curious around what's our plan for sustaining this work beyond pilot or fellowship phase and scaling the practices across schools.
Well, I can start, and then Amy and Zach should feel free to chime in. I think it looks different for the different bodies of work we're currently engaged in, just because the work itself is different, and what we learn, to your point, is different, right? And so how you then scale or sustain that looks different. As an example, as Amy shared in the math work, while it is still currently just in CLN3 and for a couple of grades, some of what the team has already learned, right, is that a lot of that instruction, for example, happens in the small group time. And so the math department has now rolled out kind of across the whole system, right, using that small group time to engage in that kind of learning. So like, even as we're still doing just a small subset of schools, the things that we learn, right, can be scaled and sustained throughout the system. So that's just one example of something within something that's still currently just at a small subset of schools, right? As Zach shared with the writing work, right? We started with a set of schools and writing, but now, because it is cross-curricular in different subjects, they're also working on materials, right, that go to lots of different grade levels across the system. And so it looks different in writing than it did for math. We did talk a little bit about OTG earlier too, which originally also started as a pilot, but now we have those coordinators in pretty much all of our high schools. So I think for different um, bodies of work we're engaged when it looks a little bit different, but we're always thinking about the things that we learn, right, in anything that we're engaged in, and how do we take the best practices, the things that really work, and identify ways to scale them and sustain them in the system. So I'll let Amy and Zach also chime in with any additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think the writing is a great example of how we're trying to partner with other offices, because we know that us just working by ourselves at these small scale pilots is like there's a lot of learning generated, but it doesn't lead to spread and scale. And so the writing revolution, like partnering with academics and really having the leadership of Chief Dabrowski, she had some really great messaging for the schools and for the principals and everybody this year, which is like the past school year, sorry, which is that this is a year of learning. We're going to try out a whole bunch of different things. And so not only did we have our continuous improvement PLC, but we had other offices, the science office trying things out in their professional learning, even the math office bringing it to their math coaches. We had our ELD representatives, the Office of Multilingual Learners, hosting a whole bunch of PD, which was great to see how much learning they had, all in the service of what can we learn this year so that we understand not only is it working, but what are the needs of teachers to make this happen. And I think that's what got us to this point, is this partnership and the leadership of the academics office to say what we really need are materials, what we really need is training, especially for the literacy coaches who can pass it on to their teachers. And what we really need is to figure out how we can get that cross-curricular coordination. And that's where we're at right now. I think that's a good model, like moving forward for the future.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add too is in kind of to your question of like how do you do this and sustain it? We knew early on that teacher fellowships, while a very important strategy, isn't going to be the only thing that can exist if we want to sustain improvement at scale. And so one of the things that we've been doing is shifting that model from a teacher-based fellowship where our team and the content teams go and directly work with teachers to a school-based model. So how is the school owning the improvement process with the support from our office and from the content office? And that is something that we did with our writing fellowship last year. We were working directly with the literacy coach or with the school leader, and we were working with them to help run their own kind of improvement PLC within their school, recognizing that the teachers still need to be at the center of what we're doing, but how can we create more brokers of facilitators of improvement cycles so that this can be learning that happens everywhere and not just because our team is facilitating it.
And the last thing I'll just say, to maybe piggyback a little bit on what Amy just said, is part of our strategy around the continuous improvement work is also, as we do engage with teachers and school leaders and central office folks on a particular project, right? They're getting to practice and learn about continuous improvement as a way to approach the work. And we have heard and seen from teachers we've worked with in the past, ninth grade coordinators and principals and other folks we've worked with, that they've been able to take what they've learned about continuous improvement and apply it to all kinds of other challenges or issues that are completely unrelated, right, to the actual continuous improvement project maybe that we were engaged with them on. And so that is another way I think we think about scaling kind of the continuous improvement approach across the system is as more and more folks are engaged with this work and can see how it can be useful, right, in helping them tackle a problem, that they start to use it in other ways to tackle other things in their, whatever their sphere of influence is as well.
There, it helps when I'm not muted, but absolutely, you're changing the culture, and that way, people, it just gets amplified and amplified and amplified. I'm curious with the Focus Forward kind of community that's being developed. How are we working to, there's a ton of central office involved. I guess this is for Dr. Swinton, but there's a ton of central office partners involved, academics, human capital, everybody's in it. And how are we ensuring like it's coherent across so that there's so many times when these improvement efforts, the improvement efforts are the work. It's not new work and I got to do this and I got to do that. How are you changing people's view, one, so that they don't see it as another thing, but it is the thing? And second to that is how are we working it so school staff don't feel overwhelmed and pulled in multiple directions?
Yep, that is a great question. And so over the summer, we were meeting weekly across offices. So there are points of contact across all of these offices. And so there's a planning team or a work group. And so in that space, and starting for the school year, we meet every other week, which is led by myself and Jalima Alisea. What is most powerful about this space is that everyone had a list, right? And so that's how we kind of generated the 25. But once we came into the room, we're all trying to lift the same work in these schools. And it's not another list to do another thing. It's like, well, how do we collaborate so that the schools understand that we are working together to build them up so that they can do their best work? So that is the conversation, the continuing conversation that we have in those meetings. And sometimes we have to say, well, this actually does not align right now, or this is not going to feel as supportive as, it has as it was presented. And so can we rethink how we integrate this in the FFIC community? Or do we need to pause and revisit this? Because we need to prioritize in this space and really give school leaders and their teams the opportunity to pay attention to what matters most. So I hope that answers the question.
It does. It does. And I know that we'll keep coming back to this because I'm really excited to see what comes of the Focus Forward schools and if we're able to accelerate growth because of it, like we are seeing with the other continuous improvement efforts. My colleague, Commissioner Dr. Redding Lallinger is not able to be with us today, but I know that he is very interested in this. And so I'll just alert the staff to he may be coming with questions later. I'll try to fill him in. So just for your awareness. All righty.
Real quick question, and I'll be done.
Mhm.
Can team provide because all this is wonderful work is has a fiscal impact and how we project that fiscal impact to look as we move forward. We already see some basis of what the costs are now. How will it be saving monies too? Because there's the other side of that ledger to be able to look at. But would the team be able to provide some sort of projection on fiscal impact? Because at the end of the day, we do have to look at that. The fiscal impact. That's it. That's my quick question. Okay.
We can certainly think about that a little bit and how we might be able to do that in terms of a projection.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm trying to get back to my mute button. I wanted to move us along. Thank you again, everyone, for your wonderful work. I'm looking forward to updates on this periodically, not just annually. And so I'd like to see how we can get kind of a midway point, how are things going update. But with that, I'm going to move us along to public comment. Staff, do we have any public comment today?
Hello, good afternoon. We did not have anyone sign up for today.
All right. Well, then I will just let everyone know for future. Members of the public who would like to provide comment to this committee can do so by signing up up until the day of the meeting, until the start of the meeting at 3:30. 5 individuals will be given the opportunity to provide comment to the Teaching and Learning Committee. Speakers will be granted 3 minutes, and all public comment should address teaching and learning related issues. Individuals or groups interested in providing public comment to the committee can sign up in 3 ways. You can email public.comment@bcps.k12.md.us, or you can call our board office or visit the board office at 200 East North Avenue. All righty. I'm going to move us on. Well, I'll say this. Obviously, the chat function during our virtual meetings is not used as a tool for gathering feedback or answering questions from the public. So we ask that you honor the process for signing up for public comment. If you have follow-up questions or feedback on anything that you've heard today or for future meetings, you can email schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us, and our board staff will provide a response to you. With that, I'll move us along to our procurement agenda today. I think we have 2 items. Great.
Yes, 2 items. Hello, everyone. I am Shabray
Hi.
Matthews,
Hi,
the
Shabray.
Director of Procurement. Hi, how are you?
Good to see you.
Same. So yes, we have 2 items on the procurement agenda for consideration. The first is section 12.01. The Chief Academic Officer requests the board's approval to contract with New Classrooms Innovation Partners, Inc. for their Teach to One roadmap supplemental instructional materials in support of City Schools' strategic math goals. The estimated total amount of the contract is $494,775. The contract term is September 17th, 2025 through September 16th, 2028.
Okay, do we have any questions from my fellow commissioners around this procurement?
None.
The last one is section 12.02 associated.
Shabray,
Yes.
I was just opening it for everybody else.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
For everyone's consumption or public consumption, I see that let's see. I'm trying to figure out where this is intended to be used. I see in the filing that it was assigned to ESSA level 3. I guess that's under the evidence of effectiveness. How many schools will be using this?
Casey, are you available to respond?
Is she, first of all, is she here? And also, is she given speaking rights?
So I am going to
That's a
give
good
them
question.
speaking rights. I see the request in the chat. I'm going to do that now.
So I think Casey and Heather are listed as the authors.
Okay, they both have presenter rights now.
Okay, thank you, Tanisha.
Hey there, Casey. Hey, Heather.
Hi there. Thanks for the question, Commissioner. As part of this pilot program for the first 3 years, it'll be 6 schools, the 100% schools as well as Armistead Gardens.
I'm so sorry. Can you give me color in what 100% schools
Oh,
are?
sure. The 100% schools, these are school turnaround approach, Commodore John Rogers,
Okay.
James McHenry, Hartford Heights, ACE, Mary Rodman. I think I got the 5. I think I got the 5.
Great. Just in case any public are tuning in and may need to know, but
Of course.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm satisfied with this. Do we want to move to the next procurement?
Yes, so next is section 12.02, Associated Catholic Charities, the Villa Maria School. The Chief Academic Officer requests the board's approval of the non-public school funding agreement with the Villa Maria School to provide specialized instruction, related services, and administration to identified city schools, students in kindergarten through 8th grade with IEPs. The estimated total contract amount is $435,375. The contract term is July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026.
Awesome. Are there any questions of my fellow commissioners?
Yes, I do have a question, a clarifying question. The proposal makes note, like a distinction between, I believe it's the difference between like 5 student seats versus, trying to see, 1 second, make sure I can find it. I wanted to quote it exactly. Let's see.
Is it the third paragraph?
Yes, I think it was like based on projected needs. So just I think the differences between like the student seats part versus there was something. Oh, here it is. This contract allows city schools to pay per seat cost rather than per student cost to maximize services available. Could you just speak to that for clarification?
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. Denise Mabry, Director of Compliance and Due Process and Office of Special Education. Villa Maria is used as a diagnostic center. So our kids are not there for the full term. So we pay for seats because it's rotating. So various students could utilize those seats. So one student may be in for 30 to 60 days. When another student, once that student leaves, we can have that seat for another student to come in for a diagnostic for amount of time that they need to be assessed.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad you asked that, Commissioner. That was illuminating. Denise, how many for that kind of rotating, like how many students might do that per year?
Some years we have more students than others, of course. Like one year, I think we had like 15, 20 students. Last year, I think it was a little lower. We probably had like 5 to 10 students use the seats.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All righty. Any other questions? Thank you, Shabray and team, and
You're welcome.
for everyone who put those the procurement together. I'm going to move us forward to the end. We'll be back at this same place and time Tuesday, October 14th, which I think we will be learning about induction and professional learning supports. And yes, I think that's it. Just a reminder around public comment, please sign up, go to the board office or email us to deliver public comment. And if you are from the public and you're on, invite someone to join. The last announcement I will make is that starting next week, we will kick off our community engagement around the CEO search, starting with a launch virtual town hall with our mayor. And then shameless plug, yours truly will be co-hosting with Commissioner Dr. Redding Lallinger at Poly on Thursday, the 18th. I'm excited to see everyone here. Excited for you to invite your friends and your foes if you want. I think that we're going to have a large youth contingency. I'm forecasting that and hopeful about that. But want to make sure that we're all encouraging everyone to come out and to give voice to what they want in the next leader. So thank you all for joining today. I'll see you on October 14th, but I'll see you first on September 18th. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.